Yeah! The John's Jam Sessions podcast!
Here we go. And me, your host, John.
And Mike on as co-host.
Mikey H in the house, motherfucker! Hello and welcome to the John's Jam Sessions podcast with me, your host, John, and Mike. You are back again. We are back, and this time we've delved too far. We flew too close to the sun, I'd say.
Yeah.
So let's set up a powerful scene for this episode because it's going to be a doozy.
It is a doozy, is the word. I've been putting this one off for a while.
Yeah,
I kept thinking, if I just ignore it and I just push it over there, it can't hurt me.
We've delayed it, but now is the time. The time is ripe for the picking. So when I first started this podcast, before it was even the John's Jam Sessions, and it was the Who Asked for This podcast, I always wanted to do an episode about Korn with you. I wanted to get into our kind of weird obsession as a kid, like, you know, the all our like lives, all the stories that revolved around the band with our lives, and through that we kind of decided to do a discography review. And still to this day, that's our most successful episodes, them than Korn ones. So then we picked System of a Down. So I think Korn are the found. So I see this as a complete trilogy now.
Yeah.
We've got Korn, who were foundations to nu metal, the glue and the building blocks. We got System of a Down, arguably the best thing that came out of nu metal, and now to top it off, the worst thing nu metal had to offer.
Oh yes.
And to be fair, nu metal had a lot of bad things to offer, didn't it?
It did.
There was a lot of quick flashes in the landfill, would you say?
Yeah.
A lot of bands that just came and went and rode the wave, but somehow Limp Bizkit is still in the public consciousness.
Yeah.
Limp Bizkit is still out there in the world. So
I think what helped Limp Bizkit become so popular and stay so popular was that they were so outlandish and that they were so ridiculous that they stood out ahead of all those landfill bands that we talk about, like Stained or whatever, bands like that. They were just sort of forgotten about. But Limp Bizkit just had this like absurdity to them, didn't they, that people latched onto?
yeah, it's something that I really want to start getting into as we get along and provide the context to. But I think a good way to start actually is, what are our histories of Limp Bizkit? What's your history of Limp Bizkit? How did you discover the band? What relationship have you had with the band throughout your life?
Yeah. Well, I was obviously aware of Limp Bizkit's existence from a very, very young age because they were soundtracked all over like the WWE and stuff like that, weren't they? So
yeah, that was a scene I was never involved in.
But I had friends that were sort of involved in that, so I'd heard songs like Rollin, from when I was maybe 8 years old and whatever. But I only started my nu metal phase. I reckon my nu metal phase was between the ages of about 12 and about 17. Limp Bizkit were mainly just a band that I dipped my toes into and casually listened to like a few songs of theirs. I had a few songs on my playlists on the old iPod Shuffle. Even back then, though, it was sort of post-ironic whenever I listened to them. It was just like a joke sort of thing. There were still songs that when I checked them out, they made me cringe and die a little bit inside. But I do remember having certain songs like Nookie and Boiler and Full Nelson on regular rotation, and I did enjoy them for what they were, but I don't think I ever really took the time to sit and listen to a full album like I did with Korn and Disturbed and bands like that, Linkin Park. So they were a band that I was aware of. I always saw them as a bit of a joke even back then, and I think most of their fans would say the same. You can't take Limp Bizkit too seriously, can you?
No, and we know what it's like when Limp Bizkit take Limp Bizkit too seriously.
Yes.
For me, again, same thing. Like this comes up pretty much every time we talk about bands, doesn't it? But it was the music channels.
Yeah.
It always stems from them, doesn't it? It was you did break stuff, rolling. What was it? Take a look around.
Yeah.
Sometimes My Way will constantly be on like Kerrang and Scuzz and the likes of that. So I'd always hear them, but I never really felt much like connection with them. I was like, oh, I'm not really into this whole rap, rock kind of thing that much.
Yeah.
And then it was through the Korn obsession, my journey down the cornhole. Where their names started coming up a lot more because obviously them two bands had quite a connection together. They were all kind of like good friends with each other. They toured together. They've collaborated with each other. So that's when I started hearing the name more, and it kind of piqued my interest a little bit. And I was like, is there something behind this band? Is there something that I'm missing out on? Is there something deeper in the albums that that everyone's in on except for me? And then I remember my friend started like getting onto them, and he was like recommending them, going like, "Oh, you should really check out Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit are really good, you know. They did John Davis is on this. He picked up an album from HMV, Significant Other." And he kept going on about it. He said John Davis is on it, and this is on it, and it's really great. You should check it out. So I think when I was out with him, I kind of caved into the peer pressure a bit and picked it up.
Yeah.
And then, to be fair, as much as I'd hate to admit it, I do remember fairly enjoying it.
Yeah.
Very hit and miss, very cherry pick. There was a number of songs that I quite liked, and the rest, were just worthy of the bin.
Yeah.
But that it made me delve a bit deeper. I got onto the Chocolate Starfish. I then got onto Results May Vary, and like you said, it was always like they were always there for a bit of fun and a bit of a joke, like getting older a little bit, and then like when we'd go out to the rock clubs like the Crazy House and that, it would always come on. Everyone, let's all have a laugh, let's all have a bit of fun. They seem like the typical let's get a bit loose. Yeah. We're having drinks, it's a bit of fun. Let's have a bit of a laugh along to Limp Bizkit. Live, laugh, Limp Bizkit, as they say.
Yeah.
And then I'll get into more as we get through the albums. But to be honest, I never had like a dislike for them.
No, same.
I never had like a love for them either.
Yeah.
Obviously, what better way to kind of explain ourselves than to just start with their debut album, which is $3 Bill Y'all.
Yes, that is.
And the year was, just stalling for time as I get me notes up. The year was, drum roll,
97.
1997.
Yeah.
So where do we start? Well, what would you think of this album, Mike? Did you enjoy it?
I will start by saying that I approached this discography review the same way as I approached the Korn discography review. I put my current now musical head on. So I wanted to listen through this discography with no nostalgia bias whatsoever. So I put my mature 32-year-old music fan's head on, and I listened to $3 Bill Y'all from start to finish. All 1 hour of it, by the way, 1 hour. This album is 1 hour long. The very first thing you notice when you put this album on, after the pointless and irrelevant intro, is that the production is an absolute disgrace. It is so unpleasant to the ears. It's muddy, it's compressed, the drums sound terrible. It feels suffocating. Don't know what you thought, but it physically hurt my ears as much as the Path of Totality did. I just wanted to escape from it.
I thought it sounded pretty bad. Ross Robinson produced, again, connections with Korn and all that. He produced the first 2 Korn albums, and later on did Korn 3, didn't he?
That's what I don't understand, because Ross Robinson's work around that time was good. Like the first 2 Korn albums sound very raw and loose, but they sound good. But this doesn't sound good at all to me.
It worked well for Korn, didn't it? But this is just the one thing I took away from this album. I did quite an extensive review of this originally before we kind of thought to ourselves we could not do a track by track for this band because it would just be torture.
Yeah.
But pretty much what I came up with every song is like, oh, this song sounds like this band. This song sounds like this band. Like the first song, Pollution, I've just put, wow, I understand why Rage had such beef with these guys. You know what I mean? Like like a lot of it feels very like egregious and very like it's like wearing your influences on your sleeve.
Very much.
And it's kind of like they're looking around, looking at all their peers, and Fred Durst is like, yeah, I want to be like Korn, yo. I want to be like Rage Against the Machine, dog.
Rage Against the Machine is a big one that they borrow from.
And cheesing it, and just cheesing it, going in the studio. And like, because this album is very different from all the other albums, I think.
Yeah.
Fred is not so much a rapper
Hmm.
more than, he's doing the harsh vocals. It's all very like screamy. It's all very rough. It's already over the place. He's trying to do that John Davis, getting in touch with his emotions, getting into that emotional state. But it just doesn't work because this guy is just like, at this point in his life, he's just like your typical jock, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's your typical like goofball. He's the class clown, and it just doesn't work.
I think the thing is, like, I have heard people say that Fred Durst was playing a character when he was in Limp Bizkit, and this is like not like he's fooling around. He's almost subversively mocking his audience in a way. And I thought, well, if that's true, then I respect that. But this album seems like he's actually trying to take himself very, very seriously.
Yeah.
The screaming and the fake tough guy stuff, the lyrics.
Yeah, nobody loves me.
It's like
nobody cares.
My God, honestly, like I can't say what the reception was at the time because I was too young. But if my first introduction to a band in 1997 was some goofy arse cover of a George Michael song, I would write that band off as a parody, one-hit wonder type act, and just never to be heard from again. So I don't understand how that was the song that blew them up.
Yeah, well, funny actually, because I did a bit of digging, and this, last episode I did with Tom, we got into the subject of industry plants.
Yeah.
For anyone who hasn't listened to that, the concept of an industry plant is basically a band that's kind of just planted into the music scene by the labels, by the studios. They buy them the airtime, they buy them the sales and the streams to just give them an immediate head start, in the race. There's no kind of organic growth. And it turns out that was Limp Bizkit. They did that to this. They deliberately paid radio stations to play their songs.
Right. Yeah. So there's a classic. That's the classic one, isn't it?
I think it was purely like, this band is, the new metal wave was here, and everyone was like, time to cash in. Let's ride this wave. What else can we really say about this album? Like it is just hands down pretty bad, isn't it?
It's terrible. The thing is, there's actually not much amusing about this album. It's just bad. But at least on the later albums, we've got some funny memes and Fred acting a fool. The reason this album is so bad is because it is trying to take itself seriously.
Yeah, I think partly that'll be a Ross Robinson thing, won't it, as usual,
It's this, like, I keep going back to it, but it's the sound of it. Every song just blends into one horrible sludge. It makes my head feel heavy. Yeah. And Stinkfinger may be the worst song here. There's some riffs in the background from Wes that are trying to poke their head through the smog, but they can't. They just get swallowed up in this just awful compressed ugly mix. Yeah. Stinky finger. And then there's a lyric on Stuck which is, all I wanted was a Pepsi, just one Pepsi. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's just again. Like I'm tripping over myself here, but this album is just it's cheese and the peas. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's trying to throw in the Deftones guitar. It's trying to throw in the Korn Rage. It's trying to throw in the Rage Against Machine kind of fusion of the rap metal
angst. Yeah.
It's just falling flat for me.
The last track. Can we talk about the last track a little bit? Because it's Limp Bizkit trying to do post rock, isn't it?
And this is the long instrumental, isn't it? Yeah.
What is it? 16 minutes long. Why are Limp Bizkit doing this? What Limp Bizkit fans want to listen to a 16-minute long slow burner of a post rock song that's trying to build up into something? I think a better band and a better producer could have made this track somewhat half decent, but sadly it just sounds like shit.
So, like you said before, when we said that we've kind of been pushing this for quite some time. The reason is when we first agreed to it, it was all chuckles and giggles, wasn't it? It was all like, this will be a laugh. And then I went on Spotify, started looking at all the albums, started looking at the lengths, and my jaw dropped to the floor. I was like, what? I was like, an hour long. Why? These albums are all an hour long each, all of them, except for the last one and the EP, which we'll get into that. But let's just wrap this album up because, to be honest, it's got nothing to say for itself. No. I have put it's a rocky start to the band's legacy. However, it really comes off as poor, that they're just trying so hard to match up to their peers. Korn, Rage Against the Machine, and Deftones, they're just doing a barely okay job at it. Listening to this and picking it up and picking up on the influences just makes me want to go and listen to them influences, do their own stuff a lot better. The musicianship is there. To some extent, they can all play the musician. I'll always have time for their bassist. I think the bassist is very good, to be fair. And the production job is like, it's lacking, isn't it? It's what it needs to be, though, for this kind of post-grungy, new metal-y 90s record, I suppose. To be honest, I think I'm being generous with the score. I'm going to give it a 4.
Yeah, you have summed it up more than I have summed it up. I've just given it a 1 out of 10 and said, hideous sound, terrible songwriting, never want to hear it again. Not even from because there's nothing to go back to and laugh at on this album like there is on the others. This is just, never want to see this album again.
No, $3 bill, y'all, in the trash. And we're going to move on. A couple of years now, 1999. Significant Other. Personally, for me, this album is probably one of the better albums. To be fair, I think in the terms of leaps of quality, it is quite an impressive. Well, for Limp Bizkit, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The leap is there. They seem to kind of know more what they want to be on this album. There are actually a couple of standout tracks, although I don't like them super much. But of course, Break Stuff's on there. You can't kind of you can't deny Break Stuff's kind of cultural impact on the world, and Rearranged. I quite like it, to be honest. I like the lovely little bum 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 ba-da-loom. Just think about it. Think about it. I think it's a bit lovely, and I want to cuddle it a little bit. And then one song, I know we were doing a track by track, but we got to talk about the John Davis collab, haven't we? It's only appropriate.
That on Nothing Like You, that was a jump scare when he popped up.
Did you not know he was on this album?
No, because he's not listed on it.
He's not, is he?
He's not listed as a feature like on All in the Family off Follow the Leader. Fred Durst is named featuring Fred Durst, isn't it? That's how it's listed on the album, but this wasn't. So I was just listening through it. Next minute, up pops John Davis, and I'm like, oh, hello.
Was it a pleasant surprise? Did it perk it up a bit?
Yeah. I've got a lot of nostalgia for Korn. I've got a lot of time for Korn. One thing I did find surprising, though, is that this album came out in 1999, which was a year after Fred's appearance on Follow the Leader. So they hadn't really blown up, had they, when Fred was featured on All in the Family? Limp Bizkit weren't a household name. People would have been aware of them, but they weren't anywhere near Korn's level.
Yeah. The timeline's messy, though, because Woodstock 99 was around this time.
It was when this came out, because they play break stuff, don't
and
they?
I'm sure I read somewhere that Rearranged is about the criticism they got towards all that, and what the blame they got towards it. But that would mean that this album came out after Woodstock 99. The timeline's a bit skew, to be honest. Maybe I should have researched it more, but come on. There's only, I'm only human. I'm not going that deep into Limp Bizkit.
They famously played break stuff at Woodstock, didn't they? And that was what caused the riots and stuff. So people must have been aware of
it. Must have been out of it as a single, at least.
It must have come out. So can we blame? My point was, can we blame Korn for Limp Bizkit? Do you blame them?
Technically, yes, I think so, because I think it was actually Fieldy who passed their demo tapes on and got them signed. So
Korn seemed to really push them, didn't they? They seemed to really push them and force them on us. Like I said, with Fred being on All in the Family, and like you mentioned about Fieldy, then it's like Korn were forcing these lads on us.
And there was a Family Values tour, and they were really, there was like a brothership between them. Really, it was kind of like. You know what I mean? It's almost biblical in a way, isn't it? It's almost like the curse of the curse of the land was Limp Bizkit upon. It's like a Greek myth in a way. What last thing about this Nobody Like You song I've got to bring up is the crap breakdown, which John Davis going, no reason, no reason.
What's the song on this album where it breaks down sort of towards the bridge of the song, and I think it's Fred in the background with some high pitch on his voice, some high pitch auto tune in his voice, and he's just going, you can edit this in post production. He's going,
Limp Bizkit's in the house,
y'all, and he just sounds like a little Mickey Mouse in the background.
Oh god, is it like one of the outro tracks or something like that?
I laughed out loud when that bit popped up. I pissed myself laughing. There's comical parts all over this album.
Oh,
What I will say is it's a step up in sound wise.
oh yeah,
Definitely
100%.
a marked step up in terms of production. You can hear everything clear as a bell.
Yeah,
Whoever produced this album, if it was
it
not
wasn't Ross
wasn't Ross,
Robinson.
no. Well, they sorted the album out from a sound point of view. Definitely give them credit for that. It's not unpleasant to the ears in a way that makes me just want to just run away and hide like the last album.
There's a song I want to talk about, and I've been dying to talk about this song
Yeah.
for so long. I think I'll just read my notes out word for word for this. There is a song on this album titled No Sex.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been looking forward to talking about this song. No, it's not an incel anthem that you'd think by the title. So this is about having too much sex. A loveless, sex-filled relationship, played off as a ballad, but it's fucking hilarious.
Oh.
I howl at the lines, is it my ass and your perfume that made this decision hard to do?
Oh, it's how bad is this song, man?
And I should have left my pants on this time.
Fred Durst talking about his ass. I feel violated.
I know.
needed a shower when this song made me feel unclean.
It's a fucking joke. Also, shout out to Aaron Lewis of Stained fame, featuring the chorus. Never really worth more than that.
Fred Durst, Fred Durst, you are the least sexy person in the world. Please stop.
I love this song for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
I can't lie.
How bad is it, man?
It's so good. I remember when I first got this album, I saw that track, and like obviously, sex sells, doesn't it? You know, you see the title, you're like, no sex, what the fuck? And as soon as I hear that, my ass. It just, oh my god.
Yeah, I know. What can I say? Going back to the album in general, I think the biggest sin that this album commits is that most of it is just mid. The two biggest tracks on the album, Nookie and Break Stuff, you know, there's got some cringeworthy lyrics, haven't they? But they're just your standard mainstream nu metal tracks. So it's hard to be too offended by these. But the bad songs on this album, like No Sex and Trust, God, they are terrible. Like they dragged the album down to meme level. And I don't think at this point they were fully embracing themselves as a joke band. I think they were just straddling the line.
Yeah.
Because on No Sex, this is Freddie's trying to be serious on this song.
Yeah,
Talk about
he's
his
genuinely
ass.
bothered, isn't he, that he's having too much sex.
So it's like, did make a note here about End Together Now, which
Is that the one with all the collabs on it?
It's got Method Man of Wu-Tang fame on it. And I think this song's one of the better tracks on the album. It's like a straight hip-hop song. The reason I think this track isn't too bad is because it lacks Fred for much of it.
Yeah.
Method Man handles most of the verses and he handles all the choruses. Fred pops up every now and again to add a verse in, but it's like a Method Man song with featuring Fred Durst. So I didn't really mind it that much. I didn't think it went over too badly. But yeah, should we wrap up Significant Other?
I'll wrap up Significant Other, yeah. SO is an improvement. I can definitely give it that. Like tossing a chicken in the air and then the chicken trying to fly. It can hover off the ground and slowly patter down to the ground, but ultimately it's a flightless bird.
Yeah.
You get a few jams sprinkled in, all amongst a mostly filler and non-starters. 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I was going to give it a 5 out of 10, but No Sex brings it down to a 4 out of 10 for me. So that one song on its own brings it down. I think 4 out of 10 is a bit generous, but I do think that this is probably, spoiler alert, their best album. I would probably say that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So following this, 2000, we get I don't even want to read this out. The chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavoured water.
So, can you explain what that means?
So the chocolate starfish is an asshole. Hilarious.
Oh dear.
And the hot dog flavoured water is the fluids of a
Ballsack.
Oh no, I didn't have that. I had something else. I thought it was the juices of the of the woman's part.
Hot dog. Oh, I know. I was thinking it was semen.
Oh, maybe there's different ways to interpret it. Maybe it's deeper than we always thought.
It's
Yeah.
deep, isn't it?
Basically, it's fucking gross and disgusting
Oh
and
god.
stupid.
Yeah.
This album is the one I do have the most history with. I think I remember my friend loved it. I think for the Biscuit standards, this album starts well with some kind of nonsense fun. We do get like a kind of a back to back to back of decent tracks, and the ones we know we get like like My Way, My Generation, Hot Dog, and all the rest.
Yeah.
By about halfway through, though, this album really loses steam, and the lengths of these albums, like my God, like
Oh god.
they are the biggest sin that can be committed for this band, really.
Yeah. Right. I've got a lot of notes on this album. Right.
Go on.
This album, it's a hardcore sellout, isn't it? There's so many pop culture references on this album. You've got a song that's on the Mission Impossible soundtrack. You've got a Ben Stiller shout out for some godforsaken
Still a shout
reason.
out, and then the song itself is like,
You've got
I wouldn't want my name attached to
no.
it. Let's just say that.
It wasn't. You got the song "My Generation," which has a chorus which is like "My generation." It's like a piss take, isn't it, of the Who song "My Generation"?
Yeah, well, it's like the Who were like what baby boomers, so like
Yeah.
their generation's debate, and this is like Limp Bizkit coming in and being
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's Gen X. We're the Gen X now. It's our generation," and it's like,
What I will say is that Fred is at his most annoying on this album. If you notice the way he loves to back his own vocals up by simply just repeating the last word of a line in every verse, it's so annoying. Like there's Hot Dog's the worst offender. Once you hear this, you can't
see,
unhear it.
that's one of the ones I loved as a kid. I
Oh
loved
my,
that one as a kid.
yeah, I
It's a
remember
fucked up world
how,
with a fucked up stitch.
I'm sorry, but "fucked up AIDS from fucked up sex" is a lyric on this song. Fucked up AIDS
Jesus
from
Christ.
fucked up sex. And on the song Boiler, he's wrote a lyric that is "I crawled up your butt for now."
I still crawled up your butt somehow.
But it's his vocal affectation on this album. He does it so much. If only we could fly.
Oh, he loves that. Yeah,
What
he
is
loves that.
How would you explain that melody? It's the same though, isn't it?
Yeah, it
He
comes
does it on
back,
Boiler as
doesn't
well.
it? It's
No, that
reoccurring, yeah.
he does it on Boiler. No, that I'm never coming back. Never coming back. It's like, what is it? Like, where have you plucked that from? But you overuses it on this album so much. I just want to punch this album in the face. If it was a person, I would harm this album. My God, it keeps returning throughout the album. If only we could fly. That's just. It reminds me of like a belligerent teenager in the park who's like mucking about, hits you with a slingshot from like 100 yards away, and then he's just stood there laughing at you and going, nah, 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 nah. That's like, fuck you, Fred. He's the problem in this band.
Oh, yeah,
Feel sorry.
100%.
I actually feel sorry for Wes, who's actually laying down some nice riffs on Full Nelson. I like the riffs on that. Like, that song goes hard instrumentally, I'm not going to lie. But it's just constantly interrupted by this man-child squawking away.
You see, this is the thing, this is the problem I've always had. So one thing that I've always heard about when people bring up Limp Bizkit, is they always bring up Wes, and they always praise Wes, and then, like, as you just said, like, I feel bad for him, what's he doing in this band? But, at the end of the day, he's a full-grown adult, and the question I have to ask is, what is he doing in this band?
No,
I've always looked at him in his wild little outfits, and his, he's all, like, in his costumes and stuff, and I'm like, what are you actually doing in this band? Why don't you go and like form a new band that's more like kind of Deftonesy or shoegazy inspired? Why don't you for some reason, everyone in this band, as much as you can praise them and be like, oh, Fred's the problem, they still decide to stick by Fred, and they must listen back to these tapes and be proud enough to put their names on this.
Well,
I just don't really have a lot of sympathy for them, because it's like, you've made your bed, you've brought this goofball on.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he's your USP.
Basically,
he is what's selling your records. Otherwise, you would have just been washed out in the ocean of the bands of Snot and Papa Roach and
you would have been
Static X and all the others that just, they got their 5 minutes in the sun, but, where are they now, kind of thing, you know what I mean?
I honestly, I have noted pretty much exactly what you've just said. I have noted that later on. I start to have sympathy for the other members of the band, but then I think you are partly culpable because you indulge this man and you allow this man's ego to just grow and grow and grow. Basically, I think Fred has disappeared up his own arse on this album. He wanted to make this his album.
It's peak Fred, isn't it? Yeah. I think it's him at his strongest, at his most powerful, which is not necessarily a good thing, is it?
But he's had a whiff of fame, hasn't he, and success, and he's just completely ran away with it. I think he wanted to make a full-on celebrity out of himself at this point.
Oh yeah, we will get into that. We will get into that.
And the band,
But
the
he
band
was
nearly
everywhere
does.
this time.
The
He
band
was,
nearly does.
as you say, he was involved in wrestling. He was he was a playable character in the Fight Club video game, even though not being in the film. Yeah, man, he's
What happens on this? Like, there's two versions of Rollin on this album. There's the urban assault vehicle and there's the air raid vehicle. So the air raid vehicle is the one that everyone's heard,
yeah, that's
and
the
the
single. Yeah,
and the urban assault vehicle is like a redo, which is a hip hop version of the song that features. I will not believe my eyes when I saw that this song features Redman, Method Man again, and DMX.
this
They
is
are
it, mate.
massive names in the hip hop world.
What one thing is, and we got this into the corn thing of like, when we were a bit baffled by how Ice Cube and
Yeah,
the like Nas
yeah,
and the
yeah, yeah,
likes
yeah.
of that were working with corn, and we're like, why are you putting yourselves with them?
Mhm.
Like the thing is, at the end of the day, is like we're both men in our 30s now.
Yeah,
We're no little spring baby chickens, are we?
no,
But we were too young to kind of we didn't really live through this
no, no.
period of music. We were just little cute little babbers
Yeah.
shitting our nappies, weren't we? Maybe there's something we're just missing.
Did,
You know
did
what I
Limp
mean? Maybe there's something that we just don't get.
did Limp Bizkit have cred in the rap world?
You
In the
got you got to
90s?
remember, like look at the world at this point. It was pre 9/11. It was Clinton era, Blair era. You know what I mean. Quite liberal and free. We were getting our like American Pies. We were getting our another teen movies. Maybe this was just the world back then.
Yeah.
Maybe the late 90s was just like a goofy time. Like you look at the generations. You had the generation that unfortunately had to fight through two world wars. Then you had the baby boomers who grew up in like the grimness and the grittiness of the 60s and 70s. This is Gen X. This is probably the most sheltered generation that there ever was.
Yeah.
Because us millennials, we have it good with technology, but at the same time we've had to go through housing crisis and all kinds of horrible shit. But
Yeah.
Gen X, like I think they had it all. I
Mm.
think it was all on a plate, and I think maybe things just got a bit wacky and a bit goofy and a bit silly, and maybe this was credited as high art back then.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, because I've already looked
No,
up the
no.
reviews at the time,
Yeah.
and the actual critical consensus to these bands were pretty bad.
Well,
Most people were like, "This is terrible.
so what?
This is a cancer on music."
So what made these very, very credible rappers cross over into the new metal world? Like, what made that? What
I
did
couldn't
make?
tell you because I don't know enough
Because
about them anyway.
I'm sure that DMX has gained nothing from being on this version of Rollin. I'm sure this has done nothing positive for his career. So what on earth does he? You can't get royalties off it. It's
I
not.
think
It's
they
not,
were
it
all
wasn't a
just
single.
friends. I think it was all just mates. I don't think it was for music or anything like that. I think they were all in the same circles. I reckon they were all at parties, all at these gatherings, all at these celeb socials.
But this is what
I just think it was just goofs,
because listen,
goofballs.
like Limp Bizkit are from California, right?
Florida,
Only from Florida.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
from Jackson. I'm thinking
yeah.
of
Which
yeah.
always baffles me because he has
Sorry,
that New
yeah, yeah.
York fucking Yankees cap on, doesn't he?
So maybe you're right because Method Man and the likes of DMX and the East Coast rappers from like New York from the East Coast.
Yeah.
So maybe there's something in that, but that's all I can think of because yeah,
I don't know.
chocolate starfish anyway.
Chocolate Starfish. All in all, it's fair to say this is probably the best the band is going to get. I've given it a 5.
I'd say the comedic value kept me interested in this album. However, Fred has disappeared, like I said, up his own backside on this album. Everything I said before, he's had a whiff of fame, he's ran away with it, he wanted to make a celebrity out of himself. I think it's at the detriment to the rest of the band, but then I feel like they're partly culpable because they indulge him and they allow him so much creative freedom. I think this album is worse than Significant Other. I've given it a 3 out of 10. It's got comedic value to it, it's got meme value to it. Can come back to this album, I can laugh. But yeah, it's not good. It's just not good, is it? It's not very good.
At this point in the band, they're not even barely 5 years into their career. Shit just blows up in their faces. Wes leaves the band. As we were saying before, he was probably like, "Fuck this! I can probably try and make a name for myself with a bit more dignity and respect."
Yeah.
I did a bit of research into this album because originally, Results May Vary 2003. The vibes I got off this album was divorce album. I was like, this is 100% a divorce album. Fred must have gone through a divorce. This is 100% the thoughts and feelings and angst of a man going through quite a bad divorce. So I did some research into it. It turns out that wasn't the case. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, go on.
Fred's top of his game, top of his fame. He's getting offers left, right, and centre. And one artist in particular, he starts to collaborate with in some music writing process. Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Britney Spears. Okay, so he's writing songs for Britney Spears. Now there's two versions of events. Either Fred Durst had a love affair with Britney Spears, or he was lying about having a love affair with Britney Spears, because he came out and said, oh, me and Britney Spears, we've been having a thing. She completely denied it.
Right. Oh, wow.
And apparently a lot of the songs off this album are inspired from that incident. He was quite bitter about it, so he took away the songs that he wrote. So just think, there could have been a world out. We could be living in a universe with Fred Durst collaborations with Britney Spears. That was close to happening. That could have been an existence. We could have been currently talking about the Fred Durst Britney Spears collabs right now, but we're not, because it never happened. So we get into results may vary. Jesus Christ on a bike. This is something else.
Yeah.
So what we've gone into so far is, one thing that keeps coming up is the word fun. And, the band are at their best when they're just a bit of fun. Like you said, when they come on in the crazy house, and, you're absolutely sloshed, you're loving it. You're at a friend, you're at a gathering with friends, and someone gets the aux cord and puts on a bit of Limp Bizkit, and we all have a giggle, we all have a hoot and a holler. What happens when Limp Bizkit aren't having fun? Well, you would get results may vary, and oh boy, they do vary.
They in a way they vary, but in a way they don't, because this album's just shit all the way through.
Yeah, this is the one album. I think when we think, like, when we talk behind the scenes and we're like, oh, what's the reception going to be to our opinions? Are we going to get flack from the fan bases and stuff like that? No fear for this one. No fear for results may vary, because it is just universally panned.
Why is it 1 hour and 8 minutes long? Why? And why? I've got another question. Why does every album have to have a stupid intro that's way too long and irrelevant to the rest of the album? Because it's not like any of these albums are like grand concepts or anything being tied together with like an intro. Every album's got an intro, like just tacked on, and it's just nonsense. But anyway, we get into the meat of the album, and well, it is 2 weeks out of date. This is Limp Bizkit trying to evolve past the nu metal sound, isn't it? In parts, there's ballads. There's like some ballads on this album that are just so unbelievably cringy, like Build a Bridge, and what's the other one? There's another one. I've not noted it down because I just wanted to forget about this album. It's the sound. It's the sound of nu metal's death rattle. This album.
It is. Yeah.
It's the last.
That's a great way to put it.
It's the last dying breaths of the genre, trying to stay relevant in the year 2003. It just falls flat on its face for me.
Because this was also the same time that Korn was starting to. The cracks were starting to show up with them as well. Yeah. Even, some people would argue Slipknot in a way. It was when they kind of went through a bit of a change, and the landscape was changing. Nu metal had its peak. It had its glory years.
Yeah,
and it kind of got into this situation where it's either you adapt or you die. And Jesus Christ, if this isn't like a eulogy for something, then I don't know what is. And, Fred barely manages to bring any energy to his performance. Yeah. And if this album isn't offering us mid, it's making me utterly depressed and hopeless. Hearing Fred this upset and deflated is like seeing that one person that's always happy sad. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's seeing the one person that's like water off a duck's back. Yeah. Nothing phases him at his lowest. Like I felt bad.
Yeah.
As much as we've shit on him, I was like, man, this dude's really going through it.
Not only is it a bad album, but like I said, as with the first album, there's just nothing amusing really on this album. It's just sad to witness. It's just like Almost Over. I'm listening to this rhyme scheme and I'm just like, you've lost the plot, man. Like, you're rhyming little boy with little boy and little boy and little boy, and then older man with older man and older man and older man.
And like, lose is an old man.
I'm like, just
running out of blues is an older man.
Like, what is that songwriting? Like, that is like the song. a local band that's
it's like when he's doing his like when you said with Chocolate Starfish, like if only we could fly.
Yeah.
Like the kind of hype things, aren't they? Like these quick little hype quips that he's coming out with, and he tries to do it on this album, but it's so like low tempo, low energy, where it's like blood of mines now, baby.
Yeah.
Come on and try now, baby.
It is,
and it's just like you can tell he's miserable. You can tell that he's like he's got tears in his eyes, and he's probably looking up at that Britney Spears poster in the studio, like like you did this to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she's probably like not phased at all. Like, what, Fred? No, never went near him. What are you talking about?
It's just so much of this album is just boring, isn't it?
Yeah,
so boring. Like, give me the mic underneath the gun.
I feel like people in the studio must have realised he was upset and went, Fred, we've brought Snoop Dogg to cheer it up. And you're like, yeah, man, Snoop Double D, yo. And he's like, oh, this will cheer Fred up. You get to do a song with Snoop Dogg. And he's still just there like, red light, green light.
Snoop Dogg, who is not your friend because he's from the West Coast. We brought him all the way over.
Yeah.
So we delivered him to Jacksonville for you.
To shit out an absolutely effortless, pathetic song of red light, green light. Are you ready to go? Tell me when you're ready to roll.
And Snoop Dogg has had some career lows, hasn't he? But this is a new low.
Yeah,
in the ocean of new lows, this is a blue whale.
I'm surprised people have any respect for Snoop Dogg these days when he's live streaming Crash Bandicoot and doing songs for Just Eat. You know what I mean?
Oh God!
But it just goes to show that even back in 2003, he'd do anything for the dime that bloke.
Jesus, what's changed? What has changed?
Turned on the worst Limp Bizkit album of all time, possibly one of the worst Limp Bizkit and Snoop Dogg songs of all time. I tell me when you're ready to roll.
So can we just address the Who cover? Can we just address Behind Blue Eyes?
Oh yeah. Let's get into this. This is the one out of the album that's quite popular. People know this one, and people even enjoy it.
Yeah, but what? Who?
It was featured on the Angry Birds movie soundtrack. I remember watching. That was one of the first films that took my daughter to see that Angry Birds. In fact, it may have been the first film. I remember that. Taking my daughter to her first film, Angry Birds. This was like, 2015, maybe 2016. I remember watching that little Angry Bird, that little goofy Angry Bird character, all upset looking outside his little Lego house while Behind Blue Eyes by Limp Bizkit plays.
Why the Limp Bizkit version?
No one knows what it's like.
But why the Limp Bizkit version? Whose idea was that? Like, what were they thinking? Where's this come from? Like, oh my God, cannot believe that little fact you just told me. 2015. This song was 12 years old.
Someone had dumped this song out of the trash. Someone was like, in this scene, the Angry Bird's a bit upset. We need like a sad song so we can kind of have this montage. He's upset. His eggs aren't hatching. Oh, the Angry Birds.
You have 7 decades of sad songs to pick from. You pick Behind Blue Eyes by Limp Bizkit of all people.
Yeah.
But anyway, results may vary.
Yeah, as I say, the absence of Wes only amplifies this album's patheticness. For me, hands down awful, 2.
I have given this album a 2 out of 10 as well. I can't be arsed. The band have phoned it in. I put no effort into this album, so I won't put any effort into my summary.
Okay, get ready for this. So, clearly, Wes decides to come back. He's not making any money. The Truth Part 1.
The unquestioned
truth Part 1. One of my favourite genres in music is Part 1s that are never succeeded with a sequel. Korn Greatest Hits Volume 1. This. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of others out there. Right, okay, so this album, right, fuck me, like, we went on into the first album about plagiarism. And me, as soon as this started, I was like, "Oh my God, you're not, are you? You're not, are you? Oh, you are. You're gonna rip Rage Against the Machine off again." okay, like, is it? Are we in that? Are we in such desperate times now? Is the world in such a bad? This is, the goofballs that were, as I say, Gen X, all having fun and that. Oh, it's all kicking off now. We're in Bush era America, wars and stuff like that. What do we need? Who can save us now? I know, fucking Limp Bizkit can come and fucking save us. Here we go, a political album, a political part album from Limp Bizkit. Here we go, and it's just fucking ripping off Rage Against the fucking Machine. Fred Durst pretending to be angry, pretending to be this man of the people who was fucking Britney Spears, but he probably wasn't. He was fucking lying about it. Dude, you were writing songs for Britney Spears. Don't come to me with all this, I'm fucking angry at the government, the mainstream media. Don't even fucking come at me with that. You are a fraudster. Yeah. You are a fake. You are an idiot. You're a bozo.
Right. Fake is...
What a waste of my life listening to this was. What a waste of my fucking time.
Fake is the absolute perfect word to describe this album. I had a look deeper into the lyrics. I say deeper. There's what is it? A puddle on the floor. I had to look deeper into the lyrics on this album because I really wanted to hear Fred Durst's poetic takes on the military-industrial complex, the psychological warfare, the corruption that goes on behind the scenes, mass manipulation of a population, things like that. Did I get that? No, I did not get that. I just got, like you said, lyric for lyric, more or less, and note for note, vocal for vocal, a complete, just Neto's own brand version of Rage Against the Machine. It's absolutely terrible. The production is absolute ass on the
yeah, well, of course, Ross Robinson returns from the grave once again.
I did not
past his sell-by date by this point. Of all the people you would bring back on board, who can bring life back into this band? I know, Ross fucking Robinson.
I've got a question.
Straight from recording the bullshit Cure album.
I've got a question, right?
Yeah.
And this is a conspiracy theory that I've made up in my head, and I want to put it out there to you and the listeners. Was Ross Robinson trying to deliberately sabotage this band? Was he trying to kill this band off? Do you think he may have been trying to do that?
I don't want to give him that much credit. I think he was a one-trick pony. Yeah. I really do, because like what has he put out after the 90s that is worth anything at all?
I just look at things like the fact that Korn's first two albums were produced quite well. Slipknot's debut album was Ross Robinson, sounds alright. Why do these albums sound so bad? And why does this album just sound worse, arguably worse than the first album?
This is my summary. The EP album, part 1, made my blood boil with rage against the Biscuit. Ross Robinson should have been trapped in the 90s and never brought into the new millennium. This is such a shameless attempt to cheese Rage Against the Machine, a band that I admittedly have some criticisms towards, but at least they practice what they fucking preach, unlike Fred Durst, who claims to be against the mainstream, yet a few years prior to this dog shit, he was writing music for Britney fucking Spears and simping for her too. Awful start to finish, hated every second of it. Shout out to some downright insane lyrics on Priest, some absolutely filthy, disgusting, horrible, alright, you're trying to get a bloody response, but Jesus Christ, no. You didn't have to say that. You didn't have to write that. The lines were crossed. Yeah. Awful shout.
We're not going to repeat it on air, just go and look it up.
Unrateable, I'm not rating it.
Yeah.
I refuse.
I just want to talk a little bit more about this album, to be honest.
Go on.
I can see why this...
Can't wait for part 2.
I can see why this killed the band off, because it did, didn't it?
Yeah. They were done after this.
I wasn't even aware that this album existed. In 2005, I was in the middle of my new metal sort of boom.
So was I. I remember,
I don't remember. I just, for some reason, always thought that, Results May Vary killed the band.
I remember seeing this all the time. There was a copy of it in Sex, the second-hand store, CEX, yeah. I remember always seeing this album on the shelf, but never wanting to pick it up because it was an EP and it was priced too high for what it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not going to buy an EP for
You say EP, but it wasn't marketed as an EP, was it? It was marketed as part of a twin album.
Talk about the album lengths. This album is still...
It's 29 minutes long and it still feels far too long. Feels like it's an hour. It's wretched.
Oh, yeah. I mean, admittedly, towards the end, I was just pretty much listening to the first minute of a song going, this isn't going to fucking change, is it? And I skipped it.
Yeah, like I said, all of the humour of those early Limp Bizkit albums, it's just gone. If it wasn't already gone on Results May Vary, boy, it is gone now.
It's like they got the wrong memo, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
like they got the wrong memo. It was like, oh, we're being too silly. Let's get serious. It's
Yeah.
like, no,
No,
you were never there to be
you
serious.
weren't.
Like you were never at your strongest when you're being
Never. No.
serious.
And it's albums like this that make me doubt whether that theory about Fred playing a character is actually true or whether he's always wanted to be taken seriously as an artist.
I think he has. Like, I
Yeah.
think he sees himself as a modern Kurt Cobain. Like, he brings him up quite a bit in his lyrics.
Yeah.
Soothe your mind like a melody from Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, he does actually reference Kurt
He
Cobain a
does, and
couple of
there's a
times.
song in the next album called "My Own Cobain," and I think he saw himself as a, you know what I mean. I think the ego had gone to his, his New York Yankees cap was getting a bit tight around his
Yeah.
skull. The band, yeah, as you say, this killed them off. They vanished. Looking back on it now, wasn't really that long, was it? It was about what, 4 years, and
6 years until the next album, but yeah.
yeah, they started touring again in 2009 because, in their eyes, they thought that modern music was so disgusting and shameful that they had to get back together despite their grievances with each other. So, what do you think about that? Limp Bizkit basically came out and said in 2009, the state of music is so bad that we need to come back.
Right. So I was going to talk a little bit about some of the songs, but it's now that you've brought those quotes up, I've got to address this because I have got a long monologue for you right
Go
now.
on.
So Limp Bizkit come back, and in 2010, stand in front of the media and tell us that music had gone to the dogs, basically, especially heavy music, and they were going to come back and basically bring back proper music, proper metal. Music had gone to the dogs in 2010. Okay, got it. Let's bring back the good old days of 1999 and 2000 when you were writing songs about fucking Ben Stiller crawling up in people's butts, sniffing panties, using the word fuck 80 times in a song for
Not
no
the sniffing
reason.
panties. Go on, carry on. Go off. Carry on.
Or let's go back to 2003 when music was real and we put out such masterpieces like Almost Over. Not all this crap that was coming out since in between 2005 and 2011. All this crap like Radiohead's In Rainbows and Animal Collective's Merryweather Post Pavilion or Flaming Lips Embryonic or in the metal world because you were so critical of the metal scene back then. All that crap that was coming out like Gojira's The Way of All Flesh, Opeth's Watershed, Mastodon's Crack the Sky, Porcupine Tree's Fear of a Blank Planet, Deftones' Diamond Eyes, Between the Buried and Me's Colours, Converge's Axe to Fall. Forget all that crap. Limp Bizkit is coming back to save music, to save metal. Fuck you, Fred. Nobody asked for you to come back to save metal. Metal was fine in 2010. Nobody, not one soul, asked for you to come back and give us auto-tunage. Auto-tunage is one of the worst things that this band has ever laid to tape. It is goddamn terrible. I turned this album off after this song. I didn't even finish it.
You didn't even finish it.
Had enough because that pissed me off so much.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking, you were a joke band from the late 90s, early 2000s, and you have basically just come out 2010 and you have shit on so many great bands. And I know for a fact that you've been serious when you come out and you put that statement out, and you have shit on these bands that have made music that is 10 times, 10 trillion times any of the slop you have ever put out. And that's my monologue done. I'll hand you back over to John.
So in 2011, Limp Bizkit brought metal back from a dire state with Gold Cobra. Another, I've got to make a dirty confession here. I'm very shameful of this, but I've got to admit it. So 2011, bit of history of myself. This was kind of like what I saw at the time as like a bit of a renaissance in my life. I was going out. I was enjoying like the club life a lot. I was going out every weekend, late nights, drinking, all that stuff. Friends. Every day was an adventure. I was free. I still lived back at my folks. The world was my oyster. Every day was something new. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was in a fun, free loving kind of state of mind at the time. And this album came out, and admittedly, I kind of latched onto it a little bit, and like I enjoyed the cuteness. And as you've just gone on there on your rant,
Yeah.
I do completely agree with you. But at the time, I kind of agreed with Limp Bizkit a little bit
Yeah.
because I wasn't, I've never really listened to the kind of a lot of the bands you mentioned there.
Yeah.
What I kind of took away from it was like the stuff that was getting peddled by what used to be like really great, credible sources like Krang and Metal Hammer and Scuzz. Like the stuff that they used to promote and push out to us had gone away, and now they're pushing out stuff that admittedly, that I won't say it's bad, but stuff I really didn't like at the time and still don't like to this day. Bring Me the Horizon, Asking Alexandria, this kind of emo core, crunk core scene kid.
I know, I get that.
All that was coming out, and that was frustrating the fuck out of me. So when this came out, I really did think like, yes, let's get Korn's Let Me Down with Korn Free. Come on, Limp Bizkit, just be yourselves. Let's just get a bit of this back in the world. Let's stop this kind of music that I'm not really into. Let's have some fun. Let's bring it back to what it used to be a bit like. So I can't get as mad with them for this. Looking back on it now, I kind of forget that pretty much all I did was cherry pick about 3 or 4 songs off this album, and the rest I probably never listened to. But it was always Gold Cobra. It was always hilarious to me to have blasting in the car. It was so funny to be in there with your mates and put Gold Cobra on, and to go around and say, like, I still look at like my Facebook memories, and there's always like a status saying holding the gold or Gold Cobra, Limp Bizkit time, or you know what I mean. There was Shotgun with the cute little bass, like still running from the police. That's the sound of a shotgun. Auto tunage I thought was fucking hilarious. Oh yeah. Go around, look around like this, yo, let me see you rock. This was the stuff when I was buzzed on whiskey, when I was just, I can still, I close my eyes, picture myself in my friend's house, and we've got the whiskey bottles just stacking up, the cans are stacking up, and we've just got, let me see you ride. Auto tunage is blasting, and we're having fun. So
we've come at this from completely different angles because I have none of the nostalgia attached to this album. So I was listening to this basically for the first time ever when I did the research for this podcast. So how mad is that we've come at this with such polar opposite like past experiences?
Yeah.
all I got out of this when I listened to it was this sounds horribly outdated even for 2011. This style of music was long dead at this point. Like, I suppose for hardcore Limp Bizkit fans that that still haven't grown up in 2011, this would have been a nice bit of nostalgia. But it's doing absolutely nothing new. There's not even attempting to evolve like Korn were doing around this time. Korn sort of, I know.
No, Korn were. This was Korn's free.
This was Path of Totality.
This was new metal. This was like when an animal dies and it still flaps its wing because of the nerve system. This was new metal doing that.
Path of Totality.
Oh, is it still alive? Is it still alive? Yeah. Oh no, it's just the nerves. It'll stop soon.
Just break its neck.
Yeah.
No, in 2011 is when Korn put out the Path of Totality. So they were trying.
It was in between. Yeah, it was in between.
They were trying to update the sound, but Limp Bizkit just come back here and went, no, we're just going to do what we were doing in 2001. Fair enough. Some people ate this up. Not for me.
So my current thoughts on this album is, I think this album is an improvement to say the least, although, it's to improve on.
No, there's not.
I think there's a few interesting moments and a couple of standout parts and Wes, but all in all, this is just utter mid. A bit of fun, but all around forgettable. Bit of a fart in the wind. I've given it a 4.
You gave the last album an unrateable score. Well, I haven't been able to rate this album because I only finished half of it. It pissed me off that much.
What did you? Let me see what you've missed. Hang on, keep going. I'll see what you missed.
I was midway through listening to this album when you fired them quotes across to me. My God, my head fell off when you sent me them quotes. I went red like a.
Which quotes?
The
about bringing back.
Yeah. And it was auto tunage had just come on, and I was like, nah, I've had enough.
To be fair, you got further into it than I thought. I'm a loser. Yes, it's true.
There was nothing that could come back to.
I can tell you now, you missed out on nothing because that last third of that album, there was nothing there to offer anyone.
I didn't think there would be.
They were never any songs that were in my rotation. The songs that were in my rotation was Gold Cobra, I think Shark Attack a little bit, Shotgun, Walking Away, Loser, and Auto Tunage. Anything else of that, I just kind of scrapped.
Yeah.
Terrible album cover as well.
Awful. Yeah, all their album covers pretty
Three
bad.
malnourished looking girls
Yeah.
sticking their tongues out, bloody Ice Spice style,
Ugh.
while the big cobra is
Yeah.
lurching overhead, about to dive on its prey.
Oh god. So yeah, I think we've said enough about Gold Cobra.
Yeah. So the after this, the band sticks around, and they're still around, and something you can actually talk about actually because you saw them live. What was that? Please tell me about that experience.
Now, despite my rant about Gold Cobra just then, I didn't listen to Gold Cobra at the time, but I was at Sonisphere in 2014, and I was aware that Limp Bizkit were playing. So I did actually catch them live at Sonisphere 2014. I was completely and utterly blind drunk. I was wearing a morph suit. It was red hot, sun was shining. Everyone was happy. So I thought it was great at the time for them reasons.
You know what? We will get into that in the conclusion, but I think that's a very good point to make there.
The crowd was very good.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the conclusion. So we've got one more to go through now. So during this period, they're out and about, they're doing a lot, but clearly something's not going well in the music creation progress. They released singles. They did one with Lil Wayne, which stirred up a bit of controversy. People were mad about that, like they forgot that they were doing songs of Snoop Dogg and all that back in the day, which is strange. I remember a lot of people going, Limp Bizkit out there, oh my God, they've wrecked it. They've done a song with Lil Wayne. And it's like, guys, Limp Bizkit have always been terrible. Like, calm down. Eventually, we just get a stealth drop, a surprise drop. Just came out one day in 2021. Limp Bizkit still sucks.
Yeah.
And for me, well, it took them a quarter of a century, but I think they finally figured out how to make a decent album.
Yeah.
Short in length, self-aware.
That's it. Yeah.
A bit of hard metal, a bit of cheesy ballads. To be honest, I'm not mad. I'm not.
Yeah.
I can't get angry at this. What are your thoughts on Still Sucks?
I agree. This did not make me rage because this is what they should. This is the attitude that they should have come back with in 2011. Rather than
feels a bit humble, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Like Fred Durst, he's now the cringe dad, and
he's embracing it.
He took up that persona on stage, didn't he, with the weird wig and the dad vibes. And there's a song "Chicken Over Dead" on the side on the floor. Get it on.
So, from that point of view, I can respect this album because, like I said, they come back with completely the wrong attitude in 2010, 2011, thinking that they were the saviours of nu metal, saviours of metal, saviours of music, whatever. And now they come back 10 years later and they've just gone, we still suck, but you love us. And we're just going to do this.
Can't live with him, can't live without him.
We're just going to mess about and you're going to eat it up. And you know what? Fair play. They are good sports on this album. It's not for me. It's okay. It sounds good. It actually does sound like an album that has been produced properly.
It does sound really well produced.
Yeah,
I did think that.
It sounds heavy, to be honest. It sounds like the latter Corn albums in terms of the sound.
It's a funny path that they've both kind of been on, isn't it? Really, there are like familiarities and like again, it's kind of like. I like this. I like a happy ending because, we've you can look into a lot of bands and it kind of just goes down, down, and you just end it feeling a bit miserable and depressed, going like, well, I guess that's it.
So it's like
at least for this, it's a bit of a bounce back. You know what I mean? A bit of a bounce back.
Fred seems to have come out the other side of his whatever crisis he was having in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. He seems to have come out the other side of that now, and he's basically just gone back to his red cap on backwards.
If only we got there. They're not causing riots at festivals anymore. They're not selling. They're not playing to these humongous crowds. They're down the festival headline slots. They've been humbled a bit. They're playing smaller venues. What's it called?
Humility.
Humility. Yeah, that's it. They've kind of because this is it now. We've got a core fan base that'll keep us comfortable and keep the cash in the bank account. And as long as we tour and every now and again put out a bit of music, is there any harm in that?
No.
Personally, no, I don't think so.
No,
I'd give this album a 6, by the way.
Yeah, if I had to rate this album, I will be generous. I will give it a 5 because I think the attitude that they've come back with is It's not the toxic attitude that they came back with on Gold Cobra. They're still managing to give the fans what they want. They've updated the production to suit the 2020s. It actually sounds good. They're just, it's inoffensive, it's harmless.
Yeah,
The Limp Bizkit fans, fair play to you, like, you've stuck with them this whole time through some of the absolutely garbage that they've put out. Have this album and enjoy it. You go over there, you have this album, it's yours. I'll continue to keep an beady eye on them from afar, but not for me. I wouldn't listen to this album again, but I can give it its due for its, like I said, its fun nature, its humility. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Still sucks. It's fine.
Yeah, it's kind of one of them, like, there's similar feelings. It's kind of like, I wouldn't mind going to see him, to be honest, but it's got to be convenient to me, you know what I mean? Like, it's nothing I'm going to really, like, go on my way for, to be honest. But you know what? If they want to put out a bit more music, my ears are open for it.
Yeah.
So I've come away from this. This was a journey, to say the least.
Oh, yeah, it was.
We've been angry, and I don't think that the problem is we've probably given them so much shit that any actual real Limp Bizkit fans have probably well tuned out by now.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to pose this philosophy, and it's like, have we done this wrong? Is Limp Bizkit were never a band that this should happen to? No. Is this unnatural in a way with Limp Bizkit? There's some bands out there that people say they're a singles band, and that's, they come out with great singles, but if you're going to go digging deep into their albums, you're not going to come out with much.
No.
Clear examples of this, I think, are like Foo Fighters, for example, AC/DC, for example. And in the same vein as AC/DC, I was thinking about this, I was pondering this. I was like, AC/DC and Limp Bizkit. I know this has never been said before, but hear me out. Both are bands that ride on a gimmick. AC/DC, you're not going to hear a song about, stock market trading or the corruption of the government. It's good times. It's having a whiskey. It's having a sex, isn't it? But they know what they are. They've always known what they are, and for that they are loved for it. And they've gone down as this like rock gods in a way, rock legends. And then like you have Limp Bizkit as well, where it's got like the USB is your goofy rap rock fun that's to be played at kind of frat parties and then later on to be part of this nostalgia thing. But I never think they quite got the memo. I think they were always trying to try, if that makes sense. Yeah, and it's like it was kind of like, it's took you till now. It's took you till 2021. Figure out who the fuck you actually are.
Do you know what? It feels like they were a bit bitter about the fact that they were a joke. It feels like they were a bit annoyed, and they were a bit like, no, we're legit. Take us seriously. But they shouldn't. They should have just done what you said then and just embraced what they were and just gone with it. Because, like I said, they would have had. The career probably would have been a lot less roller coastery, a lot less rocky. I feel like there was always some sort of bitterness coming through about especially on their the middle albums, about the fact that people thought they were a joke and they didn't really see them as a serious band. They should have just embraced it for me.
Yeah, I do agree with that. That's what I mean. Like, it's hard to kind of like, but as I say, like, you have these gimmick bands, but some people just know what to do so well, and they sell it so well. And I just never thought Limp Bizkit managed to quite understand that or do that properly. And I think if it wasn't for that whole kind of nostalgia of them and that kind of that really small window of like, kind of top of their game with the chocolate starfish and that, they'd be nowhere today, would they? They were a flash in the pan, but for some reason you just couldn't scrub off the dirt.
No, yeah, good summary that.
Yeah. I think we will wrap this up here.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, so
this ends a trilogy, as I said at the beginning. I think this is a bookend now. We've done nu metal. There's plenty more things in nu metal that we can, get into. Like kind of like the Linkin Parks and even God forbid Disturbed.
Oh, yeah.
But I think this is a concrete trilogy of three very distinct styles of one genre and how they each forked off in their own
Yeah,
directions.
absolutely. Yeah.
And, looking back, we had the band that we loved and we grew out of. We have the band that we loved and have always stayed with us. And we've had the band that we never really liked and we've grown to hate. But in a way, you love to hate them, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I feel like Limp Bizkit fans are sort of well aware that the music is just dumb, stupid, fun music, and it's not to be taken seriously. And I feel like they'd be able to take a joke as well. And the band at this point as well. Maybe if you went back to 2011, the band wouldn't be able to take the joke. But I think now, if for whatever reason they stumbled across this podcast, I think they'd have a good laugh at it.
Yeah. But the last thing I'll say is, Fred, if you're listening, mate, I think you've probably got a good chance with Britney Spears now.
You have now, yeah.
I mean, if it's true what happened between you and Fred in 2003, maybe the conservatorship was a good idea. This has been the John's Jam Sessions podcast. Thanks for listening. Please give us a follow. Please, like us on all the social medias. If you like this episode, check out the Corn episode. Check out the System of a Down episode. I'm sure that we will be reopening the tube of new metal again at some point in the future. We're not leaving no stones unturned yet. There's still lots to talk about, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Goodbye. If only we could fly with biscuits down.